Today I'm going to show you how to build a AI voice assistant just like Jarvis from Iron Man. So really quick before I hop into the demo, you can see that my calendar has no events scheduled, my inbox is currently empty, and my to-do list has just a test task here on it. So let's start a conversation with this assistant and see what it can do.
Hello, what can I do for you?
Please send an email to Garrett to schedule a meeting for 4:30 today. Also add that as an event in my calendar.
Okay, I've sent an email to Garrett to schedule a meeting for 4:30 today and added that as an event in your calendar. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Are you still there?
Yes, please create a task for 3:30 to record a video.
Okay, I have created a task for 3:30 to record a video. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Can you actually move that task to start at 12:30, and it should only last about 45 minutes.
Okay, I have moved the task record a video to start at 12:30 and it should only last about 45 minutes.
So as you can see here, it went and added the task to my to-do list here. Then it also updated that task when I asked it to change the time and the time needed for that task. Now if I go back to my calendar, you can see that it created that the event for my meeting at 4:30, and then it created the task originally at, I believe it was 3:30, and then when I changed the time for the task and the length, it updated that in my calendar as well. So I moved it and then changed the time there, and then it even sent me an email to schedule a meeting at 4:30, and then let me know this works, and then it signed off as Garrett's AI assistant. So pretty cool. And then it can also do things like research. You can see the tools here, which I'll go over in just a minute. So I'm going to show you how to download a free template to get this workflow, and then I'm going to walk you through setting this template up so you can start using this yourself. But really quick before I dive into getting this set up for you, if you're a business owner looking to use AI agents inside of your business, schedule a call using the link in the description. I'll personally answer any questions you might have about using this technology, and I'll give you some actionable ways that you can go about leveraging AI agents inside of your business. So now I can start showing you how to set up this workflow. So the first thing I want you to do is go down to the link in the description where I've given you access to this template for completely free. Now the template is in the form of a JSON file. So once you've downloaded that JSON file, what we're going to do is then come over to a website called innate.io. So you're going to log in here or create an account if you've already done so. Once you log in, you're going to be brought to this overview page. We're going to go up to the top right and we're going to select create a workflow. So this will open an empty editor. And since you already have that template, you're just going to go to the top right again, select those three dots, and then select import from file. So let's select that JSON file, and then we'll import a workflow that should look like this. So I'll explain a little bit of what this is doing, and then I'll explain the webhook here. So I'm going to we're going to have two different AI agents in this case. The first one is going to be this one inside of Innate, and the other one is going to be an AI agent inside of what is called ElevenLabs. So ElevenLabs allows us to create voice agents. And then we're going to create a voice agent, and that voice agent is going to interact with this agent, which has access to all of these tools down here. So this first webhook is what starts this automation off. And what we are doing is we are receiving a request basically from ElevenLabs, and I'll show you what this is doing in just a second. You don't have to worry about much of this at all. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over to ElevenLabs.io, create an account. I'm just going to log in here, move this over, and then we can go down to conversational AI, go to agents. I'm going to pull up my example here. So after that, we're going to select the plus, and then we can just add the name here, select the template. So we're just going to do a blank template, create an agent. So now we can actually edit these settings for this voice agent. You can edit the language, you can add additional languages here as well. You can add a first message. So this is the message that when you start a test, or you click test, or you start a chat with this agent, this is going to be the first thing that it says. So you can see the example. So I'm just gonna type out the example. Something like that. And then next up we have the system prompt. So this is going to be the main prompt that this agent is actually using. So I'm going to copy and paste in the prompt that I was using for the demo, and then I'll walk you through what this is actually saying. So we're saying you're a helpful assistant and you're supposed to be gathering the task that the user wants, and then you're going to decide, basically collect everything the user is asking, decide what task or tasks need to be done, and then you're going to perform those tasks by calling the init tool. So I'll show you what this is doing in just a second. This will make more sense. But we are using a tool called init, which is referencing this other agent that we just made. And it is using that other agent to perform those tasks. And then we're giving it a list of all the different tools that that agent actually has access to. So the calendar management, email management, to-do list, and then it can also conduct a research. And then here, I was having an issue with it interrupting itself. So it'd be talking halfway through its response, it'd stop, and then it'd basically start over and say, I'm going to do this now. And it made no sense, and it was kind of weird. But that's how I got around this, was just said, receive the question, don't say anything, but decide the best course of action, call the init tool, execute all the tasks, and then at the very end of that, I want you to give me a summary of what you just did. So that is what this little bit of text is doing there. You can add dynamic variables. You can change the large language model. So I just left it as the default. Gemini 2.0 Flash. Here you can adjust the temperature. So you can see by the definition here, the temperature is just how willing it is to go kind of off on its own and come up with a response. So creative, how creative or random it will be. So the higher the temperature, the more random it will be, and the lower the temperature, the less. So I'm just going to leave it right in the middle at 0.5. That's just there by default. You can adjust the token limit there. And then you can actually upload a knowledge base into this as well. So my last video, I created a voice RAG agent using init, but you can just upload your knowledge base directly to ElevenLabs here. And then you can turn on the setting to use RAG. And what RAG does stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So what it does is when it receives your question, it will then go and search your knowledge base, and then it will use the information in your knowledge base to actually then generate a response off of that information. So you can turn that on here as well if you want to add a knowledge base. And then after that, we get down to the tools section. So we're going to actually add a tool here. This one is here by default, so the end call. I'm going to delete this. This just allows the agent to actually end the call itself. I didn't find myself really using it, so I'm just going to delete this, but you can leave it if you'd like. So I'm going to delete that, and then we're going to add a tool. We're going to click Custom Tool, and then we're going to make sure that this is set to a webhook. So it should look something like this. And again, I'm going to base it off of the one that I just did. So the name, we're going to name it init. That's the name that we were referencing in the system prompt. The description, I'm going to paste in from the agent that I was using in the demo. And I'm going to walk you through what this is doing. So we're just saying call this tool to execute any task, and then here we're just giving it those tools that the agent has access to again. Then the method we're going to change to a post request. Then we're going to need a URL. So the post request allows this agent to actually send information to init, and in this case it's going to send the tasks that need to be done. So the URL, we're actually going to go back to this first agent here, open up this webhook, and you can see two different URLs. So we're going to use the test URL for now. What you want to do when you're actually testing this is you can start a conversation with the agent inside of ElevenLabs. Before you do that, you're going to select Test Workflow here at the bottom, and you can see it is waiting for a trigger event. So once it is waiting, then you can go start a conversation inside of ElevenLabs, and then whenever it calls this tool, it will then detect that webhook here and then execute the agent, so it'll run the rest of this workflow, and then it will send that response back to ElevenLabs and then respond there. So every single time this agent goes to call the init tool, you're going to want to select Test Workflow here. that is just when we are in the testing phase. So while we're using this testing URL, when you turn this workflow from inactive to active like this, just click got it, that actually will turn this workflow to always listening. And when you do that, you're going to edit the tool here and change the URL from the testing one to the production one. So for now, I'm just going to do the testing, and we're just going to paste that in. So if you didn't see that, we just click on that URL to copy it, and then we just paste that into this URL here for the testing one. And then we're going to scroll down, and we're going to actually add body parameters. So like I just mentioned, this allows the ElevenLabs agent to send over information to the N8N agent here. And we're going to add, I'm going to copy that same description. So in order to get that information, it should ask the user what task they want to do. In reality, you're just going to be giving it the task. It doesn't really have to ask you for it, but then we're going to add a property. And what this allows us to do is actually send this value. And the value I'm going to call tasks. You can select the data type here, so if you're familiar with coding, you can select that. If not, don't worry about it. We're just going to leave it as a string. Name it here. This is going to be a required property to send. Value type we're just going to leave as LLM prompt, and then we can add a description here. So this is going to be tasks from the user that we actually want to send over to N8N. So whenever it listens and you give it the task that you want it to do, it's then going to process your response, determine the task that you actually want done, fill that in for this variable here, or the identifier for tasks, and then this task body parameter is going to be sent to N8N. We'll see what that looks like in just a second, but for now we can click Add Tool, and then make sure you click Save, and now we are good to go. So you can edit more of the settings here. You can change the voice, look through the rest of this if you'd like, but you can actually embed this on a website, which is really cool. It looks like this. The bottom, pretty sick. But for now, we're just going to go back to N8N, and then we can look at this webhook here. So you won't have to change anything. The HTTP method is going to be a post request. This should already be here. And then next, we are sending that task body parameter from ElevenLabs into this agent, which is being filled in through this variable here. So you can see JSON, and then we're getting the body parameter, and then the identifier was tasks in my case. So if you call that something different, change this variable here, and you can also get these by clicking execute previous nodes. If you click this, click out of the agent, you can see it is now waiting for a trigger event. So while it's waiting, you can go back to ElevenLabs, click test agent, and then you can just say send an email or something, and it should then call, you just want it to call the N8N tool. So if it calls the N8N tool, it will then fill in the input section of this AI agent, which will just be populated in here, and you can just drag the body parameter that you're sending into the prompt here. So if I open up the rest of this prompt, you can see here we're giving it access to the tools. So we have an email management agent, calendar agent, research, and then the task management. So here we're just giving a little bit of an explanation as to what it's actually doing. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. However, I do have quite a bit of text here and in the system message as well, explaining the difference between the calendar and the task management agent in my case. So my task management, I wanted it to add a task on my to-do list, and then I also wanted it to add an event on my calendar for that task. So I wanted it to actually schedule them out, and you probably saw in the demo when I was adding a task, it was in a red color, and then the events are in a blue color. So that is just how I decided to organize mine, but it wanted to add both an event and a task to my calendar, and that is not what I wanted. So that is what this text here is saying, is keep in mind, no, that's not what this is saying. So I'll get to that in just a second, but I'll actually do that right now. So this is what the system message is saying here at the bottom, is before using either of these agents, you first need to determine if it's a task or event. Gave it some examples here, and then use the correct agent depending on if it's a task or an event. So these are two examples of ways that you can use to prompt these agents inside of a system message especially. So here is kind of a logical flow as to what you want the agent to actually do. So I'm saying first, determine if the thing I'm adding is a task or an event. And then here I'm also, that's another good practice, is using examples. So an example of this would be prepare for a meeting. That's a task that I actually need to do. Whereas the event would be a meeting. So you can list out some examples there, and you can also give it kind of a logical flow that it should take when actually executing those different things. So the system message is just personal assistant, and then the rest of this is kind of telling it how to go about creating tasks versus calendar events. So back to the actual prompt. This is just telling it to basically pass in enough information to those sub tools or the agents that it's actually calling, and just saying that you have more memory than they do about other things that the user has actually asked. So just make sure that you're giving them enough information to actually complete their task. So should be a clear set of instructions, leaving no room for error. Then here, finally, we're just giving access to today's date. So you could say create a calendar event for tomorrow, and it can go off of today's date. And then here this is actually filled in for when I was responding through Telegram. This is the limit, but the limit for a Telegram response. But I think you can edit this, and it will change how long the response is going back to ElevenLabs. I believe ElevenLabs already summarizes the responses coming back, so you might just could delete this. You might could edit this if you wanted. Mine was working perfectly fine with this in here, so it's not going to mess it up, but you feel free to delete that if you'd like. So we can go out of this agent, and then the next thing we're going to look at is this chat model. So we're just using an OpenAI chat model. It's not too complicated here. We just need to connect to your OpenAI account. So to do that, you're going to select this drop down, select create new credential, and then we need your OpenAI API key. So to find that, you're just going to search OpenAI API, and then mine pops up here with the platform. So just go to OpenAI's page here. You might have to log in, but we're going to go up to the dashboard on the top here, and then go over to the left side and go to API keys. Here you're going to create a new key. It'll ask you to name it, and then it will give you a secret key. So you don't want to share the secret key as it's actually connected to your account, and you will have to add, I think it's like $5 here to use their API, but it will last you a very long time. But again, don't share this API key because you are adding money to this account, and it will allow other people to use it. But so write it down somewhere. I don't think you can access this again, but write it down, don't share it, and then we're going to copy that secret key. Then we can go back to init in, and you're just going to paste that in here, click save, and then that will actually connect to your account. So I'm just going to close out of this. I already have it connected, and then we just leave everything else there the same. The memory here we can just leave the same. That just gives it access to the previous things that it said before and previous messages that I've gone through. And then up next, we actually have the 4 different tools. I guess there's 5, but this calculator is empty, and I don't know why it would need a calculator, but I kind of just threw it in there. But the first thing, or I guess for each of these tools, I'll show you how this works really quickly. So we're giving the tool a name, then we're giving a description here, so you can leave all this the same, and then the source is going to be a database, and then you're going to select the workflows. So when I was in my home workflow, or my home overview, you're actually going to need to create workflows for each of these tools or each of these sub agents that I'm actually going to show you. So you're just going to select create workflow like you did before and import the templates. So all of a folder with all the templates in. So whenever you download them, just download the ones that you want to use at least, if not all of them. And then this is how you're going to connect them. So once you've created those other workflows, which I'll walk you through in just a second, you're going to select that workflow from this drop down here. Here we're passing in the prompt. This is just called the task to execute, and you can see this from AI variable here. So I'm going to use this a lot. I'll show you what this is actually doing. So I'm going to copy that out. But what this is doing is we're setting this to expression. This will already be filled in. I'm just showing you exactly what it does. But we're entering a variable, which we do by doing 2 curly brackets, and then we enter a $sign. So this just says that we're filling in this field with a variable, and then we're typing from AI, parentheses, and then quotations, and then this one in specific, I just called it task to execute, and then we're giving it quotes, and then the closing parentheses there. You can see it turns gray. So what this does is whenever the AI calls this to-do list agent, it will then pass in whatever needs to be done through this variable here. And here I'm just giving it a little bit of information as to what it actually needs to do, and in this case it's just the task to be executed. So I'll walk you through each of these agents one by one, but you're just going to go through and select the workflow for each of these. So you won't have to change anything else, just select the workflow for all 4 of these. And I'll start by going through the to-do list agent, which is right here. So this is the to-do list or the task management agent. And what this is doing is the trigger event is when executed by another workflow. So this will wait. You don't have to change these to active. Again, by the way, these can just leave as inactive. And whenever the Jarvis or the voice agent calls this workflow, it's going to trigger this step right here, fill in that field, task to execute, and then that will be filled in for the prompt here. So if I open this agent, you can see the user's request is the task to execute. This will already be filled in here, and then we're giving the following tools. So my task management agent basically creates events on my calendar for my task. So it schedules my task out for me, and then it also updates my to-do list, which I'm using Notion for. So whenever I create a task, it will update both of these, and I'm basically just saying that I want both of these to be updated as I make any changes. So delete an event. I use this to actually update events, which I'll talk about in just a second. And I also delete events whenever I check them off. So if I check them off on my to-do list, which here, so it changed the status from not started to done, and then it will also delete the event. Here we're creating events, which is just create a task, update a calendar event, which allows us to reschedule the task. So if I don't get to something that day, I can just reschedule it. And what this actually does is my update operation, I guess is what you call it. So inside of the Google Calendar here, the operation, there's an option to update an event. That was not working for me, so I just had to create a new event and delete the old one. I guess it's the same thing as updating, but that is what I'm doing here, as I'm just telling it to delete the old one, create a new one. And then here we're getting calendar events, and then the Notion tools. So create a task, and then I'm giving it the properties for that the to-do list. So if I go to my to-do list inside of Notion, this is a database page with a database on it, and you can see different properties for my to-do list. So I have the task, the due date, time needed, and the status here, and I'm just listing out what each of those are. And then the status, when I'm actually creating, I'm going to set that status by default. I'm setting it to not started. And then when I check it off, you can see down here I'm changing that status from not started to done. Get task, and then check a task off like I just explained before. And then again, we're just giving access to for today's date. Again, you could say create a task for today, and it will know today's date. So we can click out of that. The system message here, in charge of managing my task, kind of explaining the connection between my to-do list and my calendar, what I want it to do. Ask clarifying questions, make sure you update both, and yeah, you can kind of skim through the rest of that if you'd like. But now I'm going to talk about these different tools here. So the chat model and the memory are going to be the exact same. You don't have to change any of these for any of these agents, in fact. But first up is the delete event. So I'm going to show you how to connect your Google Calendar account. You just select this credential, create new credential, and then it will ask you to sign in with Google. Now, if for some reason it shows up with a client ID and a client secret here, If you don't know what I'm talking about and your page looks like this, don't worry about what I'm saying right now. But if you need to fill in a client ID and a client secret, click on the top. It should say Open Docs. This will take you to N8N's documentation and walk you through the process of creating a Google Cloud project. So if you have any questions, I have other videos talking about this. And if you're still confused, drop a comment below and I'll help you out. But I think it should just allow you to sign in with Google. So click sign in with Google, select your Google account, and then it will pop up with a list of permissions to give N8N access to. So what you want to do is I just click access all, gives N8N access to the permissions, click save or whatever, and then it will take you back to this page. Click save again. I might just close out of it. And then you will be good to go. So this is just deleting an event. You can leave everything else here the same. You're just going to want to select your calendar here. So it'll give you a drop down, select your calendar, you just connected, and then you can leave everything here the same. So you can kind of skim over this, see what all of this is doing. I'm not going to explain this too much in detail. But next up we have create an event. You're going to do the same thing, just select your calendar, and then you'll be good to go. So the only thing that's different than the other video that I made about this task management agent is this background color. So I added this red background color. I did not mean to do that. Hopefully that did not save. Okay, we're good. So I added a red background color for my task. So if you notice in the demo, my tasks have a red background, my events have a blue. That's just how I chose to set mine up. So you can look up their Google Calendar API colors, and you can change the color name here. And then what this is doing is we're just filling in those variables using the AI agent for the start date or the start time of the event, the end date of the start time of the event, end time of the event, and then the summary, which is just the title of the event. So we click out of that, and then we can go to get events. Again, you'll just select your calendar here from the drop down, leave everything else here the same. This just allows the AI to actually search for different events. So then up next we have the 4 different Notion tools that we are using for my to-do list. So if I go over my to-do list again, I'll show you how to set up a to-do list just like this and show you how to connect it to your N8N account. So we're going to go over to Notion. You'll need a Notion account to do this, but we're going to add a new page. So Command T or just click plus right here, new page. And then what we're going to do is we can title the page. So this does not matter when we are actually creating this. This is just for you to actually remember. Then we're going to click down here, which is the body of the page. So I'm just going to go down a couple lines. And then you can see it says / for command. So I'm going to do a / and then I'm going to search for a database. So you can see it gives us a bunch of database options here. I'm going to do an inline database. Now this title is going to be the actual title of the database. This is going to be what you want to remember when connecting it to N8N. So you'll still be able to see this. It won't go away. You're fine. But we're going to add a title here. So I'll just call it to-do list Jarvis. Name. So you can just click on these different properties and you can edit what they're called. So I'm just going to call this task for my to-do list. You can also add properties here. So I have several different ones set up. You can kind of add depending on what you want. So you can search for due date. I'll give you a suggested one. You can change some settings in here if you'd like. Change the little icon. And then I'll show you what status looks like, as it's a little bit different, but type status, click on status, and you can see we get 3 different status points by default. Now you can see the default is set to not started, so if you just create a page in here, it'll set the status to not started. But if you actually want to edit these, what I recommend doing is just creating an example of a task. Literally just call it example task. If I can type. Okay. sure that was a pain to watch, but we can open up this task, and then this is an example of a task. So you can see the different properties, so you can add more here if you'd like. Select the date, just gives you a calendar to choose from, and then the status, so you can just click on all these different properties, edit the property, change the name, change the little icon there, and then you can change the different status points. So for my example, I just deleted this in progress. So I just click on this, click delete, and then you can rename it. So you can click on it, edit it, change the color here, and then you can add different options here as well. So I just left mine as not started and done. And then you do want to make sure that your init prompt actually matches whatever you put here. So not started with a capital N. If I go back to this, go open this prompt here. The create a task, the status. So I'm saying by default set it to not started. So not started with a capital N. And then whenever I check off the item, I want it to be changed to done. So done, which is capitalized also. So you can see that is put in right there. So you just want to make sure that your prompt matches these exactly as you, whenever it's creating it through the API, it needs to match exactly what is in here. So once we've done that, you've added all these different properties that you like for your to-do list. We can go up to these settings here. So go to your little menu on the side. I'm going to move my camera for a second. So we're going to go to the menu, scroll all the way down to settings, and then we're going to click on connections. So we're going to do the first connections here. There's two. We're going to do the first one. And then we're going to do develop or manage integrations. Now this will open a website. You can see we get a bunch of different connections here, or integrations that I've already done. But you're going to just add an integration. So you can add the name here. So you probably wanted to call this something like init. I'm just going to do Jarvis example, but probably call it init, something like that. Select your workspace you want to connect it to. The type we're going to select as internal. That is already set in there. You can change the logo if you'd want. Click save, and then we're going to click configure integration settings. Now I didn't change anything here for mine. I just left them as they already are. And then what you want to do is click show on this internal integration secret. You're going to copy that secret, and then we can go back to the task management agent. Going to open up that same Notion tool, and then we're going to go down to credential to connect with, create new credential, and then you'll paste in that integration secret here. So once you've done that, click save, and your Notion account will actually be connected into init. Now there's one more thing we need to do, and if you do the CRM example later on, you're going to do the same thing for that as well. Is once we're on our to-do list page here, so the page that we just created and we're editing, we're going to go up to the top right, and there's three dots. That'll give us the menu for the page. You're going to scroll all the way down to connections, and then you're going to add the connection that you just made. So mine was, I think, Jarvis example. Click on that and then click confirm. Big scary red button right there, but click confirm, and then you can see we have one connection right there, and then that will be listed as active. So we're good to go now. init can actually access our to-do list. So we can go back into init, and we can go through and set up these tools for Notion. So for get tasks, the first thing you'll need to do, you can leave everything here the same except for the database. So the database should be from list. So from the list, and then it will give you the list of the databases that it actually has access to. And for our example, it is going to be to do Jarvis, which is the one I just made. So whatever the database title is, so this is going to be the database title right here. Whatever that title is should fill in a list, and you can just select that here. So that might take a minute to load in. Give it a couple minutes, and hopefully it will load into this list here if it's not already there. And then what we are doing is we are filling in these different search filters. So whenever we are searching for tasks, this agent can actually search based on the task due date, the time needed, the task name, etc. And all you want to do is just click add condition. It'll give you a drop down of the list of properties that you actually have for your to-do list. So for example, if I select due date, and then you're going to select the condition. So you can see I have several different conditions here. So for the due date I have set to equals, time I have equals, and then the task I have contains. So what this is saying is if the due date equals the one that we are searching for, then it will return that task back. And the reason I set task to contains is because I figured I might not be searching for the exact name of the task. However, I'll probably get pretty close. And if the task contains something that I'm searching for, it'll return that back. So this just allows us to get pretty close. You know, we might not remember the exact name of the task we made, but we can get pretty close. So that is why that is set to contains. And then for the text, or the title of the text, the field that we are searching for, we're going to set to expression. So you see for the date we get that calendar, but we're going to set this to expression. And what this does, it allows us to enter a variable in here. So I'm going to do from AI, so 2 curly brackets, a $sign, and then from AI, and then a parentheses, quotes, and then I'm going to enter date of task, or due date of task, I might call it. Yeah. I'm going to close the quotes, close the parentheses, and then you can see it turns gray. So you're going to make sure that this turns gray, make sure it's set to expression. If it's not turning gray, just check your quotations, your parentheses, and the curly brackets there, but you're going to want that to turn gray. And what this does, it allows the AI to actually fill in these values here. So the AI can actually take what you've asked it to search for and kind of break up the information and search based on these different properties. So I'm going to delete that because I already have that in here. But you can go through and add. I would either use equals, contains, or starts with when you're actually searching for these properties. But depending on the properties that you have in here, you might want to change the condition. But that is what this is doing. Must match I would leave at any filter, just because you're probably not going to be searching based on all of them. So leave it as any filter, and then filter is going to be built manually. That should already be in there. But when you close out of the get task, go to create a task. So again, you can leave everything up top the same. The database, we're going to again select that from that list. It's going to be the same database for all of these Notion tools. And then when we are creating these tasks, or these pages is what they call it in Notion, the title of the page is just going to be the title of the task. So if I go over to Notion, I can show you what that looks like. So if we click on this task, you can see it opens for us, and yours might open in the center, it might open on the side, but same thing. And this is going to be the title of the Notion page. So this is going to just be the name of the task. So that's why it says title here, but we're just passing in the title of the task. Again, that's determined by the AI and fill it in there. And then you're going to manually go through and add the properties. So again, you just click add property. It'll give you a drop down. So you just select the drop down, and then it will give you, mine is erroring, but all we need to do is just select expression. And then again, we're going to fill it in by the AI. So from AI, and then give it a little bit of a description inside of these quotations here. So status of the task, or number of hours needed. This just tells the AI a little bit of information as to what it should be filling in inside of each of these properties here. And I think that's basically it. You just go through and manually add the different properties you have inside of your to-do list, and then we can click out of the create task and go to check off items. So I have two different tools here. They are essentially doing the same thing. What this is doing is we are actually updating a task that already exists, or updating a page, as Notion would call it. And when I'm checking off, I'm just changing that status of the page from not started. So that's the default status, is not started. When I complete a task, I just change it to done. That is what this check off items tool here is doing. So we're using a database page and we're updating that page. Now what this is doing is we're accessing that page through the page ID, and then we are changing the status here. I'll show you how to set this up. It's kind of a weird way to get this in here, but what we're going to do, I'm going to copy this and save this for later. Just drag this out of the way for now, but what we want to do is we're going to actually set this to by URL. So what this is saying is whenever we are updating a page, we first need to actually find that page in order to update it. And what we are doing is we are searching by the URL of that page. And how we can get that is we can go back to Notion. We're going to open up our example task here. So if you haven't created an example, create an example. You just click plus for the new page, and that will make a page there. So it doesn't matter what you have on this, we just need this example page. We're going to go up to the top and select share. Move that out of the way so you can see what's happening. Click on share, and then we're going to copy the link for this page. So this is the URL that will take us to that page. So we're going to paste that URL into this by URL for the database page. And then what this allows us to do is we can actually add properties. So these are going to be the different properties that we are searching for to actually update. Or not searching, these are going to be the properties that we are updating. You can see it's loading, so it gives us that drop down. So this is all you have to do. I'll cut out the other part, but select the drop down. And then you're going to, for this case, all we are updating is the status. So I'm going to select the status, and then you can see it will probably list out the status that you actually have to select from. It gives me an error here, but we're just going to set this to expression anyways. And then you can see we can enter those variables here. So I'm going to copy this, and again, you'll just enter from AI, and then something like updated status of task. So if we want it to be the updated one, we don't want it to be the old status. So this should be the new status of the task that we're filling in here. So I'll close out of that property, but this is what this checkoff item is doing. So we're going to that the database page, or the task in our database. Then we're updating the status to the updated status, so the new status that we're changing it to. And this is why we need the prompt here to match exactly what those status are inside of Notion. So that's why I made sure that these matched exactly what is inside my Notion to-do list, is because it needs to actually fill in that status exactly when it's filling it in here. So after we've done that, we actually need to go back and edit this page, database page. So I'm going to set this back to by ID, and then I'm going to copy and paste that same URL in here. Set this back to expression. So you can see it turns gray. That means we are all good. But what this does is whenever we check off a task, it will then use probably the get task to actually find the task we just checked off. And then it will go to this check off items tool here. So it'll go to that get task to get the page ID of that page or that task. Then it will come to this tool, plug in that page ID here to actually update the status inside of this tool. Now you're going to repeat the same process, getting that page, the database page URL here. So change it there, change it to fixed, paste in the URL, and then here's where you can actually add the other properties that you want it to be able to change. So if you want to update the due date of a task, you want to update the time needed for a task, or the title of the task, you can add all those properties here. It'll give you that drop down, and then you can just fill it in from the AI there. So repeat that. These are basically doing the same thing. One is just changing the status when I check off an item, and the other one is just updating a task in general. So that is it for the task management agent. The next thing we have is the research agent. I'll leave that over there actually. So the research agent, and do keep in mind that I have videos out about all of these different tools here. So if you ever want more of an explanation for each of these tools, I have other videos out. But I'm going to go through the rest of these. The research agent, again, we are passing in when executed by another workflow, which is this other voice agent. It will then pass in the info that we want research on. Here in this first agent, we are just collecting a bunch of information. I'm not going to go through these prompts, but this collects a bunch of information about that given topic. Then we are synthesizing, basically just summarizing that information. And then here we are formatting it to be sent back. Let me close out of that. We don't need that anymore. But I did get a question, why do I use 3 agents here? You could easily do this in 2. I think you don't need, I think you could summarize it and then format it in the same one, but using multiple agents inside of workflows just allows you to assign more specific roles to those agents. So here, this agent is only in charge of getting information. So it doesn't have to worry about summarizing it, anything else. It can just focus on getting information. So it allows it to do a better job, and you have less of a confusion when actually prompting it inside the prompt and the system message. So you can give it a very specific role that it should actually take on. Now, you won't have to do anything for the chat models here. We're using OpenAI again, and you can kind of edit these prompts if you want. Yeah, so I would definitely edit these prompts. I'm prompting it for, it's supposed to be doing research for an e-commerce store selling technology. So unless you're an e-commerce store selling technology, you probably want to edit these prompts, but I'm not going to go over exactly what those are saying. I'm going to show you how to set up this Tavly search tool here. So we're using 2 different tools to get information. First is Wikipedia. You don't have to do anything for Wikipedia. Next is the Tavly web search tool. So this allows us to actually search the web using an API on a platform called Tavly. And to do this, you're going to want to create another workflow like you did for all the other ones. And I'll go over that in just a second. So if you're at your home overview page here, you're just going to select create new workflow. Go to the top right, import from a file, just like you did for the first one. You're going to do for all of these, including this Tavly search tool here. So I'll show you what I might have that pulled up already. No. Okay. So I'll open the template so you can see exactly what this will look like when you download it. So if you go click on this tool here, leave everything here the same, and then you're going to select that workflow that you just created. So when you download the template and create the workflow, it'll look like this. So whatever you name the workflow up here, you're going to select in that drop down right here, and you're going to do that for all of these sub agents as well. So any agent that you're using as a tool here, you actually need to select that from the drop down under this workflow section. So repeat this for all of the tools here. I might have mentioned that already. So again, select the Tavly web search news. Mine is called the news template, so you might have to select the news template. But what this does is it takes in the search prompt from that other workflow. The research agent can pass in the search prompt that it wants web search done on, and then we're using an HTTP request to access that platform Tavly. And you can leave everything here the same, and we do actually need to edit this JSON body. So to get access to your insert API key, so we need to get that API key. So we're just going to look up Tavly. I'm going to click on this here. It takes us to their website. I'm going to log in here, and then it takes you right to their overview and gives you the API keys right there. Make it super easy. Just click the plus, get the API key. There might be one by there. There might be an API key here already. So you're just going to click on this and it'll copy it. Maybe just copy it there. So copy that API key, and then we can go back to the Tavly search tool here. And then inside of these quotations, make sure the quotes still stay there. But you're going to paste that API key inside the quotes. And you can leave everything else here the same. What this is doing is we're just sending a search query, which is the search prompt passed from the research agent. And then here is just a bunch of kind of default settings as to what it's actually supposed to do. The topic I set to news, so it finds kind of more relevant or trending information, I guess, if you will, on that search topic. However, you can change this to general, so you can just type out general here. I'm just going to leave this as news, but that's what you'll want to do there, is just paste in your API key. You can go through Tavly's documentation, so they have their documentation listed there if you want to edit that, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. But if you do edit this, change the edit fields here, but I personally wouldn't worry about it, so you can just leave everything else the same, add your API key, and you're good to go. So we can close out of this, and that is it for the research agent. Up next, we have the calendar agent. So what this does, again, it receives the task that it needs to actually execute, sending that task to execute into the prompt here. Very simple prompt. Calendar assistant, manage my calendar events. The task to execute, again, filled in by that variable here. You can leave everything here the same. I'm just kind of going over what it's actually saying. Give it the list of tools. These are all self-explanatory, except for the change event, which, again, I'm just saying to delete the old event, create a new event with those updated changes. And then today's date is just passed in there. So you can say things like create a calendar event for today. It will know what today's date is. Model in the memory, we can leave the exact same, just like all the other workflows. And then the 3 tools here. So the delete event, you will need to actually connect your Google Calendar account, which we can do by selecting this dropdown, create new credential, and then it will just ask you to sign in with Google. Same thing if it wants the client ID, just click Open Docs, but sign in with Google. Hopefully that's all you have to do. But select the permissions from the drop or that list. So give access to all the permissions, click confirm, and then it will connect your Google Calendar account. We click save there, and then you'll be good to go. So you can leave everything here the same. You just need to select your calendar. So it'll give you a drop down. Select the calendar you want to actually add events to. And then again, we can just leave everything else the same. And same thing with the create event. You just select your calendar from the drop down and leave everything else the same. It's just using the AI to fill in these variables for the start time, the end time, and then the title, which for some reason is called summary, but that's the title of the event inside of your calendar. Access events, the exact same thing. Just select your calendar from the drop down and you'll be good to go. Again, we're just using the AI to fill in all of the information there. So pretty simple for the calendar agent. Up next is the email agent. So I believe this is the last one. Yep. So this is the last agent or the workflow that you have to create. Again, we are using the task to execute passed in from this Jarvis or the voice agent here. And passing into this prompt, quickly go over this. These are pretty simple prompts over here. So do the following task to execute, again passed in from Jarvis or from our voice assistant. And then we're giving the contacts or giving the tools here. So send an email, get an email, delete an email, mark an email as open. And then here is an extra tool that I added to actually get contacts. So I'll talk about that in just a second. And then we're giving access to today's date. And then here I just gave it some instructions as how it should be sending emails. So here it should just format it in HTML. This just allows it to look a little bit better. And then sign off as Garrett's AI assistant, just so people know if they receive an email, it's from my AI assistant. So if it says anything crazy, which it shouldn't, but kind of cool, you can change how it actually signs off your emails and change anything here you want. So you can add things like the tone of those emails, things like that. But I'll go back up to this get contacts tool. So if we click out of this, we can actually see that we have all of our Gmail tools here, and then we have a Notion tool over here on the side. So what this is doing is I have created a CRM, I guess, inside of my Notion account. So I'll open that really quickly. And if you want to create this, you're just going to do the exact same thing with the to-do list. So create a page, create a database. I just use an inline database for this as well. You can add the properties here. So here's some examples that I've used in mine. And then to actually connect this to Init, all you have to do is go to these 3 dots and then go to connections, select that connection that you made earlier if you did the to-do list. So if you didn't do the to-do list, go back and connect it to Init, but hopefully that makes sense. So what we were doing is I just gave it access to these contacts inside of my CRM here. So when I said email myself or email Garrett, it went and got this email from my CRM. So I really just did this to give it access to my contacts. Realistically, you can have this Jarvis agent actually have a completely other tool here that can actually access your CRM. So you can have a completely other workflow. I've covered this in other videos, but you can have a completely other workflow to manage things like creating contacts, updating contacts and getting contacts all in your CRM. So I could have added another tool here to do that, but I just chose to simply get contacts here. But that is what that tool is doing. So you're going to connect that the exact same way, and then you're going to select that database that you just made. So mine is vidCRM in this example. So you can see it is the database titles here is vidCRM. So you don't have to fill in anything else there after you connect your account. And now I can actually start walking you through these email tools. So again, we're using the chat model, memory here. Again, you just leave those the same. And then we have 4 email tools. There's a lot more that you can actually add. I don't use email a lot personally. So if you want more actions to take inside of your email, you can just click on this little add tool right here. And then you can type Gmail, add the Gmail tool, and then I'll show you how to connect to your account. I'll just go ahead and do that. So again, create new credential, and then again it will just ask you to sign in with Google. Hopefully you don't have to do the OAuth, the client secret and the client ID, but sign in with Google, select your Google account, and it will give you a list of permissions. So give access to the permissions, click save, and then you'll be good to go. So what we can do is if you want to add a new tool, you're going to want to set the tool description to manually. You can see here it says consume Google API or Gmail API, and this doesn't really give the agent a lot of information to actually go off of. So if you want to, we'll first select the resource. So let's say we want to create a draft. I'll show you the message options. So you can check the operation. So you can, the messages, emails. So if you want to reply to an email, send and wait for a response. You can go through the rest of those. Or let's say I want to create a draft. So I select draft as the resource, create a draft, delete a draft, get drafts, whatever. So create a draft, and then I can enter the subject, the email type. So I'll set to HTML, which again I specified in this prompt here. So I said format emails in HTML, and then here we can enter the body or the message for that draft. So again, I'm going to set both of these to expression from AI again, and then the subject for draft. So something like that, so the AI knows what to actually fill in for this section here, and then we can do the same thing there for expression, and then body of email. So fill in those. You can add other options here, like who you want to send it to. If you want to copy people in, thread ID, so if you want to reply to an email thread that already exists, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to leave that as deleted, or delete that, and then go through the rest of these tools. So mark as read, your account will already be connected, so you can literally just leave everything else here the same, I think. Filling in that message ID, which is filled in by the AI. Deleting email is the exact same thing, so message ID to delete. Emails, get emails is, yeah, you can just leave everything else here the same. So you won't have to do anything after you connect your Gmail account, but we are giving it some filters to actually search our emails based off of. So if it's received after a certain date, before a certain date, or the search criteria, and then send an email. Again, we're just sending a message to who we're sending it to, subject, and then the message here, which is the body of the email. So for the demo, I was sending an email to myself. So what it did is it went to this agent. It said we need to send an email to Garrett. So it goes to get contacts to actually get the email for that contact. So you can see in my CRM, it goes to my contact, gets the email for my contact, and then goes to send an email. So then it plugs in that email, the email address to actually send that email to, and then it fills in the subject and the body based on the prompt that I gave it earlier. So that is it for all of the agents actually. The calculator, you can see it's just empty. There's nothing you have to do there. And then we're just responding to the webhook. So it's just the first incoming item that we get from this agent, we're sending back to ElevenLabs. So that is it. That is how you set up the ultimate AI voice assistant, or Jarvis, if you will. But if you have any questions about any of these workflows, or just a question in general, drop them in the comments below, or send me an email. And if you got anything from this video, leave a like and subscribe. And yeah, that's all I have for you today. Have a good one.